Could Prince William use this one move to cut Prince Harry out for good? Why was Royal Ascot unexpectedly emotional for the royals? And what is behind the row between Catherine and Meghan fans over jam and dog biscuits? It really has been a busy week for the royal family. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and back this week to talk about the big royal stories is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English, the Mail on Sunday's royal correspondent Natasha Livingston, and diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome to you all. Now, before we get into it, a question for you, our viewers. Are you a subscriber yet? If not, what are you waiting for? Please do click that subscribe button. It costs nothing and it guarantees you will see each new episode of the show and you will not regret it. Also, if you enjoy it, please do share this show with friends, family, someone on the street, the dog, everyone, anyone who you think might enjoy it. This really does make a difference to us, so thanks very much. Now, moving on. It's not always what Rebecca says, it's sometimes what she doesn't say. And last week, she was ahead of the pack in predicting the return of Catherine to Trooping the Colour, a first public appearance in months. Rebecca, this was a pretty well-kept secret. How did it unfurl?
Well, as I said to you last week, there was just something I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I suspected it was going to happen, but, you know, she's going through cancer treatment and, you know, she won't know how she feels from one day to the next. But if I'd been a betting person, I think I would have put money on it. But yes, I mean, I didn't necessarily expect there'd be a big announcement. And then on Friday, about 3:15, I got a message saying, could you be on a conference call at 4:00? And I thought, I know what this is about. And it was, and we were read out the message that they intended to release to the public to her. We were told about this wonderful new picture of her. And, you know, they were stressing, look, this is not a return to work, and that was something they were very, very keen to stress. It's not a full-time return to work, but it is a signal she now feels slightly well enough to maybe dip her toes in a little bit over the coming months.
You called it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my job, isn't it?
Scoop English over here. Natasha, you were there. Tell us, what was the atmosphere like, and what do you think having Catherine there meant to the crowd? Do you think it made a palpable difference?
Yeah, I mean, there had been biblical rain just before they came out on the balcony. So the fact that so many people were still there and so excited because they knew that the Princess of Wales was going to be there and come out with all three kids. I mean, people were still so excited. And the group that I was with, there were loads of scouts and kind of young children. And I mean, people were jumping up and down, you know, they were waving, and people were just ecstatic. And I was, you know, chilled to the bone from this rain. And yet the atmosphere was still, so celebratory.
Did you detect any kind of emotion on Catherine's face? Did she feel loved by the crowd?
Her smile is so wide that even from where I was standing, it just was glowing. Honestly, it's incredible. So yeah, she just looked delighted. They looked like a really happy family. It was genuinely just really nice to see.
Richard, it was reported, wasn't it, that Catherine's return to the public eye was such a significant moment that the palace was duty-bound to tell the Prime Minister and our opposition parties.
Yes, that really does make it sound serious, doesn't it? But there's a reason for that, is we're in the middle of a general election campaign. And viewers might remember that the royal family have had to cancel various engagements because they can't do anything that might overshadow election coverage or also that might look favourable to one party or another. So in this case, you can imagine that Catherine's reappearance for the first time in public since Christmas Day last year was a huge event that did dominate the newspapers. It was dominated the front page on Saturday as well as Sunday. So that did kind of blow away the political coverage. So I think the Prime Minister had to be warned about that, and he let the opposition party leaders know as well.
Fascinating.
But I think they took the view that, look, Trooping the Colour, is a celebration, it's part of our national life. So I think all the political leaders were happy for Trooping the Colour to go ahead, and the fact that Catherine was part of that delighted all of them. I think they shared in the public's joy to have her back with us.
Absolutely. Rebecca, she also released a statement. What can you tell us about that? What were the sort of key points that she wanted to make?
I thought there was a really kind of moving and kind of painfully honest statement. She made a point of saying the messages that she and William have received over recent weeks and months have meant an enormous lot to them, and that has helped them get through some really tough times as a family. She wanted people to know that she is making good progress, but she was also really candid and said, you know, this has not been easy, and like anyone who's undergoing cancer treatment will know, is you have good days and you have bad days, and on the bad days you want to curl up in a ball and lie in bed, but on the good days you want to seize life and you know, make the most of your time with your family and children. And she said she's having to learn to be patient as well, that, you know, there is a lot of uncertainty around this treatment, and she was having to learn to pace herself. And I think in that she was making the point again, saying, look, I am going to be at Trooping. I do hope to do a couple more events over the summer. But she was basically saying to the public, please bear with me.
Yeah, no promises. Richard, we also got a new portrait. What can you tell us about that?
Well, just like Rebecca says about the statement, that it was so honest, I felt also an incredibly moving portrait. It was a photograph taken by Matt Porteous, and he loves nature, and he took a wonderful portrait of Catherine with the 3 children in a tree last year.
Yes.
And again, a tree featured heavily in this portrait, which was a weeping willow. Catherine, of course, was a student of history of art, so she knows all about the symbolism of weeping willows. There's references to grief, you know. The fact that the pose is her sort of looking upwards very wistfully. I think it was showing sort of what an important part that nature and being at Windsor's playing in her recovery, but also I think it shows that, yes, she's not out of the woods. There's the reference to the tree and the water, and she's going through a hard time. So it was laden with symbolism, I would say.
It was very reflective, I thought. You know, as she rightly say, looking wistfully up at the
Well, also
the sky.
remember, every photograph we ever see of Catherine, she's usually looking direct at the camera, often, you know, with a beautiful smile.
Yeah, true.
And in this case, she wasn't, and it's very moving. I would say it's probably the most symbolic picture we've ever had of Catherine.
Interesting. Now, Natasha, there's lots more we could say about Catherine and Trooping, but let's move on to one of the other big events of recent days, Royal Ascot. You were there. Tell us, for those who don't know what it is, explain what it is and why it's so huge for we Brits.
Yeah, Rebecca and I were there yesterday. Thank goodness it was sunny. But yeah, it's a week in June at the famous Ascot racecourse, and it's a week that they always put on where the royal family attend. And there's obviously the normal horse racing that you'd get, but crucially there's a royal procession, and it's just really quite fabulous. The royals come, they're in carriages, horse-drawn carriages, and they sort of go around, and there's all the spectators, and people kind of take their top hats off in respect for the royal family. I mean, in my opinion, Royal Ascot is also all about the hats. People normally wear fabulous hats and fascinators, and yeah, it's just a great event.
Oh, and Richard, the King and Queen have used this year's event in quite a touching way, haven't they?
Yes, so this, the royal procession, as Natasha mentions, is really important, because what happens is the King and Queen entertain guests and friends at Windsor Castle, and then they have the carriage procession down, and it's a great honour, and it shows kind of who's up, who's down with the King and Queen.
No, it doesn't show who's down, does it? No.
Well, I think it does if you're not there,
Oh.
yeah. And there's a lot of importance put on this in social circles. And the ones I like, the particularly poignant this year was Lady Gabriella Kingston was in a carriage. This was on the first day as well. And I think everyone accepted that was the King and Queen showing their love for her after the tragic death of her husband earlier this year, Thomas Kingston.
Yeah.
So that was very significant. And there was another one as well on day 2 where there was Lady Sarah Keswick, who's one of the, they used to be called Ladies in Waiting, but they have a new title now, don't they?
Queen's Companions.
Queen's Companions. And her husband died a couple of months ago. Sir Chips Keswick, King and Queen attended his memorial service, and she had pride of place in the royal procession this week as well. So
that's lovely.
Yeah, so they've really used it as a chance to kind of show friends and family how much they value them.
Is it awful of me to say, I really do still miss, I've been to Ascot a few times, Royal Ascot, and I used to love guessing what colour the Queen would come down in, Queen Elizabeth, because she was always very good at being that human highlighter in like day glow orange or pink.
Well, you could bet on that
Yes,
as
you could on
well.
the
Yes,
Queen's
you
hat.
could,
And
yeah.
one year there was a lot of very suspicious betting, do you remember? And they had to kind of cancel it because there was a sudden rush on a particular colour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the late Queen. Yeah, there was a feeling that someone might have heard from somebody within the household what she was wearing that day. It was every day it was a big thing.
I love the fun facts we uncover on Palace Confidential from time to time.
Virology, do you remember last week?
Yes, well,
Virology.
we'll be talking about that later. Now, Rebecca, you were also at Royal Ascot this week. Did you have a good time? How are you feeling today?
Thanks, Joe. Slightly green around the gills.
There's no
if
need to
I'm
reveal
gonna
private
be-
conversations, Joe.
I was just asking.
What
I was
goes
just
in the green
inquiring
room
after
stays in
Rebecca's
the
health.
green room. And I did win the princely sum of £4.20. So I
See, if you'd been able to see straight, you might have been able to make more intelligent bets.
I don't know what you mean, Joe. And as Natasha said, it's so quintessentially British. You go in and everybody makes such an effort. The hats are fabulous. You can see the men love being in their rented morning suits. It's great.
Well, Sophie and Edward were among those celebrating, and we know that they're very popular with our viewers.
Well, I've written a big piece on Sophie and Edward in the Mail this week, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth having a look on our website because they're celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary this week. Silver wedding anniversary. I remember actually when I joined the Mail 25 years ago, it was one of the first jobs I was given to cover was their wedding as a general news reporter,
not
knowing what I was going to go
Rebecca,
on to
you
do.
don't look old enough to have been doing it for that long.
Oh, Joe, you say the right things.
Well, we will be putting a link for that article in,
that
in
would be
the
good
show notes,
because I've spoken to a lot of friends of theirs about what makes them so great as a couple and what makes it work, and they really are a team. There was a lovely speech that Sophie gave about her husband when he turned 60 early on this year, and she said, he's been the best husband and the best father, and I still quite fancy him when I see him in a uniform. And I did an interview with Edward, which we spoke about earlier on this year, an exclusive one to mark his 60th as well, and he really came alive when he spoke about his wife, and I could tell that he didn't underestimate or underappreciate what she'd taken on when she married him at a time when his brothers and sister, all their marriages had just failed in the last few years before that. And it was great. And I think what was great, going back to your original question about Ascot, is that they decided to spend their wedding anniversary there on Wednesday with a load of mates. So it was a big event for them, but they celebrated it in typically understated style. They weren't in the landaus. They were just there with their friends having a great time.
Oh, incredible. Now, Richard, speaking of Sophie, you've had fun with a bit of mischief this week, haven't you, in your column? What's the funny story?
Well, we've often talked about how, what do they call it, sort of royal recycling, where usually the royal women might wear the same outfit once or twice, or in Princess Anne's case, often many times.
For 50 years, yes.
Yeah, they've been pioneers of this, is very environmentally conscious. Well, now it looks like they might even be sharing outfits, because Princess Beatrice yesterday was wearing a dress by one of your compatriots, an Australian designer whose name escapes me now.
Zimmerman. I know him well.
That's it.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
Princess Beatrice wore a lovely floral dress by Zimmerman, and at the Order of the Garter ceremony on Monday, very similar dress had been worn by Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh.
That's a good spot, Richard.
Now, I'm not sure if she had said, you know what, I love your dress, can I wear it on Wednesday or not? Or maybe she has her own version. I'm
Well,
not
it's
sure.
interesting because in my old life as a magazine editor and dealing with celebrities a lot, not royalty, you would be in so much trouble at a photo shoot if you presented a celebrity address and the publicist would say, Angelina Jolie wore that last week, she can't wear that. So it's so it's interesting that they'd be relaxed about that.
Well, I think Rebecca ought to find out, is there a royal wardrobe that they can all sort of dip into and share the same dresses?
And can we all have access to that, please?
Absolutely.
And it is all about recycling now, isn't it? And re-wearing your clothes. In fact, before we go off the subject of Royal Ascot, I was telling you guys earlier on, met loads of people when I was there on Wednesday who watched Palace Confidential.
Oh,
so I wanted
good.
to say, and they came up and said how much they love the programmes. Several ladies from America. So I just want to say thank you very much and keep watching.
Wow, that's so great to hear. And now it is actually time to hear some of your comments. We do love getting them. Many of you were pleased last week with our Princess Anne section of the show, and that's coming up a little bit later for any new viewers. Don't panic. Henry writes, I love Princess Anne, dedicated to her family, the monarchy, lighthouses and horses. That's quite a combo. I could not agree more. After our discussion about the prospect of the Sussexes at Trooping the Colour, Maureen Ball had this to say, I don't want to see the Sussexes at Trooping. We just don't need them. Thank you for that, Maureen. Finally, Dimwit, it's quite a name, has weighed in on the debate around whether David Beckham should become a Sir. David Beckham deserves a knighthood for having more respect for the late Queen than her own grandson. Ouch. Ooh. That one's got to hurt. Good Lord. Let's bring my panel back now. And hours before Catherine appeared again for the first time in 6 months, a friend of Meghan and Harry posted a picture of Meghan's new jam and dog biscuits. Oh dear. Richard, the Daily Beast, published an article saying it could be an astonishing coincidence, that timing, and actually quoting a friend of Catherine's as saying, you just have to ask yourself, who would set out to ruin a cancer sufferer's day? It is absolutely pathetic. Gosh, those are strong words.
They really are, aren't they? I should say that the Daily Beast subsequently published another article saying that Meghan hadn't intended, the timing wasn't intentional at all. But I think
there was a third party, wasn't it? It was a friend of her. It wasn't her.
But I think let's explain what's happened here is that Meghan has sent some gifts. In this case, it was to their good friend, Prince Harry's best mate now, Nacho Figueras, the polo player. And he posted something on social media with an image of his very sweet dog with some dog biscuits and also raspberry jam that's come from Meghan's new brand, American Riviera Orchard. And that's what had been posted. But this is the problem of their sort of marketing strategy. So Meghan's done these publicity stunts, essentially, where she sent out goods and encouraged friends and influencers to post about them. But you never know when they're going to do it, do you, or what they're going to say. So it's completely out of your control. So yes, you get great publicity when these people say, I've got my latest jam, but it's very embarrassing if it's just before, Catherine's reappearance at Trooping. It can look very pointed.
You could specify, as journalists, we are all given information and sometimes told you can't release this until this date. I mean, so whatever the truth is, Rebecca, it does look a bit clumsy, doesn't it?
But it is clumsy. I mean, look, you can't expect them to have known that announcement was coming out because, as we've discussed a lot on the programme, people don't tell them things because they don't trust them. So I don't think they would have known, but I think it just, again, shows why Queen Elizabeth was so very, very wise in saying you can't have a half-in, half-out job. You know, if you're going to do what you're going to do, go off and do it outside of the royal family.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Natasha? There's marketing for influencers and then the way the royal family does things, and they're so disparate, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, for example, as we've discussed on the programme, the King recently with the King's Foundation has celebrity ambassadors like David Beckham, but then that's organised by a whole team. And then, there are pretty strict parameters about how that works and what that work involves kind of on behalf of the charities. And normally when the royal family do work with celebrities, it is for that charity. And this kind of thing, which is, basically what influencers do. You know, a brand sends off clothes to someone and then they post them wearing it. We all kind of see that a lot online. But then, as Richard mentioned, you don't know what they're going to say. It's a much more informal strategy that can backfire on you.
I have to say, this whole thing is very odd, because think about it. What is it? It's all meant to drum up publicity for Meghan's new brand. But the brand hasn't actually been launched yet. You can't go on a website and buy any of her goods. Also,
I noticed the jam had like a number on it as well. So it's like the inference is that there's not much of it being produced. So
I think this one was 1 out of 2 as well, which suggests there's only 2 jars of jam that have been produced.
Yeah, and I was told that the strawberry jam they sold was made with strawberries from their garden. So I don't quite understand how that relates. I think it is genuinely just a publicity stunt for the brand to get people talking about it. But we'll
is there ever going to be a scenario in which they could say to the palace, we've got this product coming out, have you got anything that it might be treading toes on, or is that just not going to happen?
They don't have those conversations now. I mean, they really don't. I mean, sometimes their kind of fandom tries to say, well, the King, when he was Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, had his had his kind of, Highgrove range and his Dutchy Organics range. But again, it goes back to the point you're saying, everything they do the money doesn't go into their personal pockets. It's for charity. So it's a very different setup. But no, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, the lines of communication between Montecito and Buckingham Palace are non-existent.
Indeed. Now, Richard, you've written a fascinating newsletter about your conversation with a friend of Prince William this week.
Yes, this relates to last Saturday, Trooping the Colour. Obviously, it was wonderful to see Catherine back on the balcony, but the viewers might have noticed just how empty that balcony looked. You think back just a few years, and it used to be packed with all the extended royal family. But that policy was changed by Queen Elizabeth because of Harry and Meghan.
Right.
It was too awkward not to invite them onto the balcony, but then to invite kind of minor members of the family. So they had this new policy of just the working royals up there. What I was told was that, unfortunately, from my point of view, because I don't really agree with it, but Prince William plans to stick with his father's view of this slimmed down monarchy. What this means in effect is that there won't be any new working royals.
Right.
So, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, is the youngest working royal other than William and Catherine, and she's 60 next year. And the others are even older. The Duchess of Gloucester, it's her birthday today. Happy birthday, she's 78. Or we've got the Duke of Kent, who was on the balcony, is, I think it's 88. So they're of an age, and there won't be any new ones. He won't be asking his cousins, Beatrice, Eugenie, or Lady Louise Windsor, to be full-time working royals. So that it's very significant and changes the whole nature of our monarchy.
Well, they're going to be spread rather thinly then, aren't they? And Rebecca, you could say that even if William wanted to carry on with this policy, once that monarchy is slimmed down, if they decide that they need to fatten it up again, that's a hard sell to the public, isn't it?
It is financially, and it's something if he was going to do, he might have to even fund out of his own pocket. The one thing I would say is I think the reason why monarchy in this country has survived for, as long as it has, many, many centuries, is because it does evolve over the years. And although we saw Queen Elizabeth as a very steadying presence, behind the scenes she was constantly, adapting and changing. And I wonder if in a decade or so's time the public appetite might have changed again, and they might actually just feel happy with that kind of core nuclear family that is William, Catherine and their children. Who knows? But I think it would be very difficult for him to kind of go back and start drawing people in again. That said, I know we kind of differ on this, Richard. I was really touched by the scenes we saw at Ascot this week. When you saw William was there on Wednesday, and as guests you had Zara, Mike, Beatrice, Eugenie, and there was great pictures of them all in the kind of paddock together, and Zara with her arms slung around William, and you could see such a great bond between them. And it would be nice, I think, maybe even if they weren't full-time working royals, to try and bring that energy and that youthfulness and that clear, brilliant relationships they have together, maybe to the fore a little bit.
Come on, Zara and Mike Tyndall would be great full-time
royals.
royals.
It does seem like a practical solution, doesn't it?
Well, it just depends about your sort of concept of the monarchy. So Prince William, by all accounts, wants a sort of European style, like the Spanish royal family and others, where it is just that nuclear family.
What do you think going forward, Natasha, as the young person on the panel?
Happy to speak on my behalf.
Oi, Joe! Voice of the youth. Voice of the youth is about to speak. Hush now. Voice of the youth. What as we sort of like age out one generation of royalists. What is the perception? What is the appetite for that royal family, in your view, amongst younger people?
I think the Prince and Princess of Wales are very popular, as are their children. I think everyone can see that they're adorable, and I think the fact that they are the future of the monarchy is something that is pretty popular. Equally though, speaking on the topic of Zara and Mike Tyndall of course was on I'm a Celebrity a few years ago, which a lot of my friends know and love and watched him on that, so he is also very popular because of that. But I think, particularly with the Wales family as the future, I think the biggest problem in my opinion, that the royal family have is apathy, and you can't help but look at the Wales' family. You know, they're just very eye-catching and engaging, and people love to follow them on social media, which they're really good at boosting. So yeah, I think the prospects are looking okay.
So your job's safe for now. That's good as we move forward. Now, Richard, what could all this mean for our friends in Montecito, Meghan and Harry?
Yes, I mean, remember that when Prince Charles then had the plans about the slimmed-down monarchy, Harry was very much part of that. We saw that on the balcony at Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee in 2012, where it was just Harry and his brother with Camilla and the King and Queen Elizabeth then.
Yeah.
And so he was central to those plans. You know, Charles thought when Harry had a family, they would be carrying out engagements, they would be sharing the duties with William. So I think time is running out. You know, if Harry wants to come back at any stage, he needs to do it while his father is still king, because I really do think that when Prince William is king, would he even take the calls from his brother? Can you imagine? I really can't see him letting Harry come back and have a role again. They are irrelevant now. They're just not wanted as part of the monarchy.
Oh, never say never, Richard. It's family. Never say never.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps, who knows? Maybe there will be some radical change, but it's hard to see now, particularly when all the focus is on jam.
We've seen stranger fictions become truth in this family, I think. So let's see. Now, but Natasha, on the subject of William, we should mention that we did get a very sweet picture of him, albeit the back of his head, for Father's Day.
Yes. Yeah, it was a picture of William with the 3 children. I think it was taken again by the Princess of Wales in Norfolk. We know that they love to holiday there, and they were standing on a beach, and there was a little message from the 3 children, which is the first time I think that they've shared a message on social media. So yeah, it was heartening to see, but maybe it would have been nice to see their faces.
Oh, I thought it was really cute.
I thought it was kind of poignant. It was them, you know, I wrote a big piece about it, about how I thought that picture was Catherine's tribute to her rock. And, you know, William standing there with his arms firmly around his children, drawing them together. I thought that was quite symbolic and a sign of, you know, we are a tight family unit.
And he's celebrating his birthday tomorrow.
He is, yeah. He's 42, Friday. We haven't been told much. I was trying to find out whether they might be kind of issuing a photograph to mark the occasion. I think it's 50-50 at the moment, because they don't always do it unless it's a really big birthday, and obviously they feel that they've put the picture of William out at the weekend. But yeah, very happy birthday doing the school run or whatever he's doing.
And to my baby sister, who is William's birthday twin in Australia. Can you believe it?
You see, you were always destined to do this job.
Yeah, I know. I always remember William's birthday. Now, it's time, fanfare, for the Princess Anne section of the show, Rebecca.
We need a fanfare, I think, for this.
I keep saying I want you to take us to Windsor, where you saw her this week for a very special occasion. These special occasions are just coming thick and fast.
And actually, this is a brilliant week in the royal calendar for it. So the Monday of Royal Ascot week always starts with the Order of the Garter, the most ancient order of chivalry in the UK, dates back to Edward III, and he was so inspired by the tales of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table that he decided to create his own group of knights.
But why does it have such a kinky name?
Table.
Why is it called? Why is it the Garter?
Because they wore garters to hold up their stockings then, in a very that way, Joe. You've really put me off my track now.
Always wanted to ask.
You're so naughty. So it's and what's very special about it is it's not a government appointment. It's an appointment by the sovereign for people who've either served the Crown or done extraordinary public service. So you do have a few kind of prime ministers, ex-prime ministers there, but you've got senior members of the royal family. You've got, this year, for the first year, Lord Lloyd Webber, the kind of celebrated British composer. And they have a lovely lunch up at Windsor Castle where the new people are installed. Duke of York was there for that lunch, I think, as we discussed on the programme the other week, but is not allowed to process now in public. And then they have a massive procession, great big kind of blue velvet mantles and ostrich plumed hats. People cheer them as they go down. They have a service at St George's Chapel and they come back up in the landaus.
And what was Anne doing?
Anne was there looking just utterly splendid as usual, holding her own. I also think on Anne it's worth mentioning how brilliant she was at trooping the colour, because she was on horseback with William and Edward, and she was given Noble, who was the King's horse, who was given to him by the Canadian police. And Noble is a spirited horse at the best of days, and was definitely giving Anne a run for her money. And she showed what a brilliant horsewoman she was, kind of sitting there astride this horse, just kind of trolling it basically with one hand.
Yeah, and I have to say, when the rain started, there was also thunder and lightning, which obviously really freaks horses out, and they were getting a little skittish. But not Princess Anne's horse. It was
she had it well under
doing
control.
What it was told.
Yeah.
No human or beast messes with Anne.
No, exactly. So she's had a good week, and actually, I should mention we met some more Palace Confidential fans at Order of the Garter.
Oh, you're just bragging now, Rebecca.
No, but who brilliant. The ladies who'd come over from Belfast, and all, I would suggest, good Palace Confidential fans were watching the Order of Garter with a bottle of rosé.
On brand.
Ladies
Very
after
on
my
brand.
own heart.
I thought we weren't supposed to mention wine to you today, Rebecca. We've made the point before, Richard, that it's one event that William never looks particularly comfortable in. Do you think he's just embarrassed by the big plume? I don't know. Do you think he might want to change this Order of the Garter in the future?
We really miss Catherine at Monday's ceremony, because she usually likes to attend and tease William about his
just
outfit with his velvet and his feathers and stuff. You could say it's one of those events that, with William's modernisation of the monarchy, potentially might get rid of, but I hope not. I hope he sees the fun of it. I mean, it's just wonderful seeing the colours and all the pageantry, and for lots of us, that's what we kind of love about the royal family. Obviously, there's something slightly absurd about it, but that's
kind of great.
That's part of the fun. So if you get rid of all that, you may as well get rid of the whole monarchy.
Oh, well, I can't believe that those words just came out of your mouth, Richard Eden.
Well, I think, Richard, I think safely say there's certain kind of what we call the hardy annuals in the royal calendar they'll keep, and I think that would be one of them.
Sorry, William, you've got to keep that plume on. Well, the Order of the Garter ceremony is always one of the year's best visual treats for royal watchers, so we thought we'd put together some of our favourite pictures of the event over the years. Was so good, I recommend going back to watch that one again and again and again. I also recommend you to subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel if you don't already. It's just time to say thank you to Rebecca, Natasha, Richard, and to you for watching. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.